Hello, my name is Allison Hill, and I'm a senior data scientist at IBM on the AI strategy and innovation team. Prior to that, I worked at our studio for about 3 years, where I was the product manager for data science communication there, working closely with the R Markdown team, as well as a professional educator. One of the things that I've been doing in the month of December is showing how you can use R Markdown to make simple, sophisticated websites and deploy them to Netlify pretty easily. This is one of the things that I did a lot of when I worked at our studio. And it's one of those things that I think is really intimidating for new users, but can actually be very empowering as well. So I'm back with day number 8. I'm a little bit behind, but I decided to enjoy my holidays. And actually what you can see right now is the glow from the outside. It has snowed about 4 to 5 inches where I'm at. So we've had some pretty fun snow days here, and we had a almost white Christmas. So I hope wherever you are, you had a happy holiday. But for the month of December, Netlify is donating now it looks like $500 per site deployed to charity. It's a project called Dusty Domains. And so what they were doing was promising donations to charity for any new sites or any old domains that you kind of dusted off, but it actually works for new sites as well. And it can be a custom domain, but it can also be a simple .netlify.app domain, which is the random one that Netlify provides for you. So that's what I've been capitalizing on. And what I wanted to show today was actually kind of one of those things that took me a while to figure out the right workflows for. I'm going to use blogdown as the project, but I am going to instead really kind of try to show you how I would prefer to work with blogdown for myself. So I think of myself as a collaborator. I come into work or come into my space where I'm working every day, and maybe I forget things, or I forget where I left off, or I need to test something out. So I need to work in a safe space and not screw up my entire website and the deployment. And so using Netlify effectively with GitHub is one of those things that I feel like is a really great set of skills to feel empowered with. So that's what I wanted to show today. So I'm going to use blogdown as a tool, but that's just because it works really well with Netlify and it does the build for me. So I'm going to show some workflows today, mainly for thinking about interacting with yourself. So in a future video, I'm going to do one where I talk about collaborating with other people. But these are just some simple workflows that you can do on your own. I often see people, especially educators, maybe tweeting out like, hey, what's a good beginner, GitHub repository that my students can start, contributing to get practice with Git or GitHub. And usually my answer is make it yourself. Collaborate with yourself. You're your best collaborator right now. So if you're not very comfortable with Git and GitHub and you're enjoying building websites with me, then try using that as a way to boost your GitHub skills on your own. You don't need anybody else. And if you screw it up, you only let yourself down. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And don't worry, I've let myself down many times collaborating with myself, but I've also enjoyed myself as a collaborator. I'm pretty careful with my pull requests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow my own instructions on the Hugo Apparel site. So this is the theme that I built for a Hugo site. It's really a good site for blogdown users, or a good theme for blogdown users, I think. And it's the one that I've used to build my own personal site. So I can show you. So this is a site built with Hugo Apparel. So I'm just going to create a basic template site right now. I'm not going to worry too much about styling it, but I'm going to use it as kind of a sandbox for being able to use Netlify. So I'm going to follow my own instructions so I don't screw up. So the way I usually recommend people to start, and how I've been doing in all these videos, is to go to github.com first and to create your new repository. Okay. And I wanted to showcase that this is actually one of the patterns that Jenny Bryan has outlined in Happy Git with R. So if you look under early GitHub wins, you'll see that she has Get Started with GitHub, which I really recommend you start with, and obviously do all the other steps above in order to be able to interact with Git and GitHub from your local machine. But this new project GitHub first pattern, so she says, we create a new project with the preferred GitHub first, then RStudio sequence. Why do we prefer this? Because this method of copying the project from GitHub to your computer also sets up a local Git repository for immediate pulling and pushing. Under the hood, we're doing Git clone. And this is actually a pretty nice workflow. And I typically try to use it. There's other ways that you can work with Git and GitHub and RStudio, but I try to go with this because it's kind of my fail-safe and I don't have to think too hard about it. And also, I think if you're an educator, I think it's a healthy workflow because it sort of solidifies for people the difference between GitHub and their local R Studio. There are some ways using the use this package where you can do it all from the R console, but I found that sometimes that confuses some new users because they're not sure when they're talking to R Studio or GitHub. So I like kind of a separation of church and state here. So just to explain why I use this pattern all the time. Okay, so I believe I'm on day 8, I think I said. 8, let's do apparel patterns. So I'm going to try to highlight some patterns that I think are healthy ones to get started with Netlify and GitHub. Okay, so I've created my empty one. I'm going to go into our studio now, file, new project, version control, git, paste in that HTTPS repository URL. Perfect. So this is just an empty repository right now, an empty project. Git pane, you can see that RStudio has added those expected things that are specific to RStudio projects. I'm gonna go back to my own instructions so I make sure I don't miss anything. So I've created the project. Now we're to the create site section. So you can see I've got like these kind of panel sets to show you, like, here's your to-do item, and then here's the message that you should see, and then here's a screenshot of how I think it should look. So I am going to, let's see, I'll just copy this part and then load blogdown. So I already have the blogdown package installed. Here, I'm just creating my new site using the Hugo Aparo theme. It says Hugo Aparo / Hugo Aparo because it's actually pulling from a GitHub repository that is github.com Hugo Aparo. It's literally Hugo Aparo / Hugo Aparo. So this is the actual place where the theme files are. So it's literally just creating a bundle, a tarball, a zip file, if you will, of all of these files that you're seeing right here, and plopping them into my site, into this themes folder. Do I want to serve and preview the site now? Yeah, I'm going to say yeah. Okay, so it's essentially doing that serve site command for me. Woof. Oh no, error building site. Content blogs. Oh, interesting. Failed to process the short code. Executing short host. Access denied. Uh-oh. That looks bad. The current security. I've never seen this before. Okay, so let's try to troubleshoot this. Interesting. Content blog by markdown, index markdown. Let me see if it does have, it has that blogdown postref shortcode in it. Maybe. Let me look back here. Look in my R profile. Okay, so Hugo version is 0.9. I can't tell if what I'm seeing is an error message from Hugo or from blogdown. I think it's an actual Hugo error because it's saying that it failed to render my shortcode. This is a shortcode that's added by blogdown. It was kind of a workaround. If you do a search in the GitHub repository for the blogdown package, you'll see that. But this looks like stuff that it's expecting in my config toml file. So this actually looks like an error that might be emitted by Hugo, but it's about that shortcode. I'm first of all going to decrease my blogdown Hugo version. I'm going to put it down to 8.0 because I know that that works with Hugo Aparo. I'm going to see if I can just kind of work around that error. No. Oh, but I have to restart it in order for that to take effect. Okay, so let's see if I tell it to go down in Hugo versions, what's going to happen. Okay, so that worked. So I know that I have some work to do on the theme side now of fixing it for the latest version 0.91. So that is a Hugo error that we just hit. Looks like it's a Hugo incompatibility between the postref shortcode, which is some Hugo code that eWay added to the blogdown package. It adds it automatically in this this little file right here. If get env blogdown post rel ref true page. So So it says it failed at get-in, error calling get-in, access denied, is not whitelisted in policy. So I'm not going to be able to troubleshoot that live. That's a mess. But I'm glad I have this now. I haven't created a site with 9.91. So great. It's always fun to figure those things out. So anyway, the solution that I came upon was to downgrade my Hugo version. So for now, I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to go down to 8.0.0. I know that's a compatible version for Hugo Aparo. So we'll make do with that because I didn't want to troubleshoot a bunch of Hugo today. All right. So beyond the red, let's just like clear it out so we don't have like that bad karma. Okay. I'm going to blow this out into another browser window. So this is just the stock Hugo Aparo example site. So it populates for you. Okay. So that's what it looks like. I'm going to make some changes that are super visible and easy to see. And then I'm going to show you how I use Git and GitHub to do that. Okay, so the first thing is let's go ahead and commit what we have. Okay, not sure what this Hugo build lock. I wonder if that's part of, because I've never seen that before. Let me check out that file. Let me refresh this. I'm not seeing it. Is it like a hidden, it's .hugo_build.lock. I've never seen that file before. Can I see the inside of it? Let's see if I try to commit just that. See, all these other ones, it shows me inside. I don't know what that is. Very odd. Okay. Just out of curiosity. What is this one doing? Oh, it's generating my. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm gonna actually try to not commit that and see what happens because I don't see it actually in here. So it must be some kind of hidden file, but I thought I was showing hidden files in this viewer. So let's see what happens. Now this is going to be an interesting adventure to see if we can get Netlify to actually build this without that. It should work. I'm going to go one at a time. I'm really looking here. What is data? Index.rb. All of this looks just fine. Okay. So the only one I'm not familiar with is that Hugo build lock. And I wonder if it was created when when my site just wasn't simply loading. Okay, example site, initial commit. Okay, now I'm going to push it for the first time. And let's open it up here. So here it is in GitHub, and I haven't done anything in Netlify yet, but we're gonna do an immediate deploy to Netlify after I get it into GitHub. Or immediate being relative to how long it takes. Okay, try it again. Uh-oh, okay. So what has happened? Okay. It seems to be struggling. In the meantime, I'm going to pull up Netlify. And I'm going to log in. There's Ryan Gosling. Kidding, it's somebody else. Okay, sites. Let's go back here. Okay, it looks like that made it up to GitHub. I'm leaving off that lock file on purpose because I don't know what it does. Perfect. Okay, so I have the site built and it will be served locally. I have it in GitHub, but there's no built site in GitHub, remember? So what it does have is it has the content folder. The content folder has all the source files that you're actually wanting Hugo to run with. So anything that even has R in it is already rendered for me because I've run serve site locally. And so those stay in those little bundles. So like here's an R markdown one. This is index.r markdown. And then you can see that it's been knit because it's index.markdown is the file there. And that's the actual one that you see. And just as a reminder, you can always do blogdown You can do check site overall, which is always good practice. But if you want to specifically look at content, you can do check content. And this checks the validity of all your YAML metadata and posts. It checks for any future publish dates. So that's one of those gotchas where when you're working with yourself, you might be wanting to say publish a link to a talk that you're about to give, but the actual date that you put on there is in the future. So Hugo by default will not render. It'll show you locally, so you'll think that it's there in your site, but when you publish and use Hugo for publishing your site with Netlify, it will not show anything with future publish dates. So that's why we have this screen in there. It also will not show anything in drafts. So if you do draft true in your YAML, which I'll show you how to do, you will see that also locally, but you will not see it when it actually gets deployed. So there are differences between what you preview locally and what the built site looks like. And those are two of the biggies. But then we also check for very specific R Markdown content. So these are things that Hugo doesn't know about, but the blogdown is smart enough to know about. So checking your R Markdown content, all of my R Markdown files have been knitted. So that means I don't have any files that are just an RMD or just a .R Markdown file that don't have a corresponding knitted file associated with them, because the knitted output is what Hugo will actually render. So this has also been a source of problems where people have made the R Markdown file and they didn't realize that they had to actually physically knit it locally and then push that up to GitHub in order for Netlify to see that. So all R Markdown output files are up to date with their source files, meaning that I don't need to reknit any files because I did serve site. It also checks for duplicate HTML output files. So this is the case where some people have actually knit to HTML and then realize that they wanted to knit to Markdown also. And then that's a confusing state where you'll have the HTML rendered, but not the Markdown file rendered, but maybe your Markdown is the one that's getting updated. It's a very confusing state. I've been there. So we check for that as well. And then there's also this edge case of having the ability to create incompatible HTML files, but we haven't detected those either. So anyway, all said and done, great. Your theme does not contain the content directory. Your theme does not contain the content directory. Oh, I think that's, anyway, I don't even know what that's checking. Check complete content. Okay, so we're done with that. So I am going to now head over to Netlify, create a new site. Oops, can't see my own. Let's see. Now I don't know how to add a new site. They changed it. Import, deploy manually, import an existing project. Okay, it's been a while. Usually I do new site from Git there, but import an existing project from a Git repository. Okay, so GitHub, vacation brain, holiday brain. All right, so I believe I called mine 08. There's apparel patterns. Okay, so because I have that file in there locally, I have my Netlify TOML file. That's how you check it. Because I have it in there locally, it should just kind of do it all for me nice. So I'm just going to hit deploy and I'm not going to change any of the defaults. And then we're going to watch it build. Hopefully it doesn't freak out over not having that lock file. I'm pretty sure that that was added by the later Hugo version. I'll have to look that up with the theme and try to fix that later. Okay, this all looks healthy. This is a healthy build. All right, site is live. Eager Arding Helly. Excellent. Okay, so you can see all this looks really, really good. So let's start with our first pattern. The first pattern that I really use a lot, whether I'm working on my own or with other people on a blogdown site, is I typically create branches. I leave the main branch that you can see I'm in right now. I leave main for what is deployed. But if I want to add anything to my site or change anything in the site, my first thought is that I want to create a branch. So by creating a branch and then doing the PR to my main, it has a lot of like kind of icing, some nice things for you if you're using Netlify, GitHub, and blogdown. So I want to showcase that pattern first. So in RStudio, the way you create a new branch locally that also creates a tracking branch in the remote, so it's really nice and easy, is this little like 2 boxes and a diamond logo up here. Even when you hover, it doesn't show you anything, but this is the new branch. So new branch, branch name, and it's going to automatically sync the branch with the remote, which is what you want. So the remote being what's in github.com. So let's say I'm going to do a new post. And I'm going to do create. So you can see that it's showing you the actual GitHub commands there. So we're doing, if you were to run it at the terminal, you would do git checkout B, which is new branch. It's a shortcut for new branch. And then we're calling it new post. And then it's already automatically doing this for you, but you'd have to do this manually if you're doing it the command line. It's doing git push u. So you're pushing to the origin being on github.com, this new dash post branch. Okay, so now I'm in this new post branch and I can push and pull to github.com. So branch new post is set up to track remote branch new post. So remote is up there, and oh, sorry, origin is from here. So origin is from local, remote is up on github.com. So I'm pushing from the origin to my remote. And I think if I go over to get, let's see, get remote V, that might be clearer. Yeah, so you can see the origin. If you do get remote dash V, that shows you that origin is up here at github.com. Oh, I screwed it up again. I'm on the remote and origin is up on github.com. It's been a while. It's been a long vacation time, so I'm enjoying it, but this is, remembering this is difficult. Okay, so that's what we've done. We've created a new branch, so I'm not in main anymore. Now I'm going to go over to Netlify real quick and activate a few things. Oh, fancy a game. The deploy is done, but hey, you can still play if you want to. It's an interesting new feature, Netlify. Site settings for eager Arting Helly. I'm going to go down to build and deploy. So what I have here is branches. And so the default for a new Netlify site is to control which branches in your Git repository you want to deploy. And so the production branch, the one that is actually shown when you look at the URL that Netlify has provided for me, is the main branch. And you can see that it says branch deploys, deploy only the production branch, okay? I'm going to leave that as is for now, but I want you to see below, there's this deploy previews section where it says deploy previews allow you and your team to experience changes to any part of your site without having to publish them to production. So what does that mean? That means it doesn't have to be in the main branch for you to see it, but it does have to be a PR to your production branch. So this is a really, really wonderful feature and I love it. So even if you choose not to turn on branch deploys, you can leave that as is. I really, really encourage you to use deploy previews. They're actually already activated for you and the Netlify drawer is enabled. I confess that I haven't played around with that new feature too much, but deploy previews have saved my tuchus on a number of occasions. They just really are time savers. And I'm living in a world right now where I don't have Netlify deploy previews. And it's so hard because you have to be able to pull in a PR to your site. You have to look at it locally before you merge it in. And I really encourage this for anyone who's working with blogdown, because people will do PRs to you and you need to be able to see it before you merge it in. And so it's great practice for you to do it on your own for yourself and see how it works and play around with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to content. I'm going to go into the blog and I'm just going to add a, let's see, is seedling a simple one? That's not totally a simple post. I was just going to kind of like copy and paste an existing one. Let's see, evergreen might be very simple. Yeah, there's some math in there. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to copy evergreen and call it something different. So I'm in my new branch. Oops, I got to move myself. Copy to. And we'll keep it in blog. We'll call it Happy New Year. All right. Okay, so now you can see that Happy New Year has been started here. Featured is this wonderful image of an evergreen. Let's delete that. So we know it needs to be labeled featured.jpg. I'm going to run over and just grab something from, let's see, Unsplash probably has like New Year's photos that I can grab really quickly. It's kind of a fun one. You really want to go for like a landscape. I don't need to be picky about this, but for some reason I can't help it. All right. I kind of liked this one. This one is quite nice. Uh-oh, shit's broken. Oh no, it's broken? How did that happen? Back to Unsplash? Really? I've never had that happen before. Okay, I'm gonna try it one more time just to see. Okay, well, that one wasn't bad either, but I liked the mountains. Is it still broken? Oh man. Okay. Unsplash is down for anybody else? New Year's. I'm going to go over to raw pixel. Let's see, raw pixel is my other favorite. Actually, you know what? There was a really cool one. This one looked kind of cool. It's just, we won't do a New Year's. We'll just do something like this. I don't know why I get so distracted by wonderful art. Let's do the newest. Oh, that's pretty. Where is the one that's previewed? That's lovely. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to do small, free download. Okay. So I'm just adding a new thumbnail for my post. Let's see, 08 apparel patterns, go into content, blog, and then you can see my Happy New Year post is there. And I'm going to drop it in there, but it's not named the right thing. It needs to be named featured. And that's because it actually does like a nice little regex underneath the hood for me to create that. So let's see here. Am I still doing a live preview? Oh. Okay, so now let's go over to blog. Oh, and then I need to change the date. Oh, there you go. You can see it there. All right. Let's change the date on that post so that it gets up to the top here. Okay, so let's do a future date. 01, 01, and then title. Happy New Year 2022. Okay, so if you actually did this date and then had draft false, let's see what happens. You can see that's the rendered post there. If we go to blog, it should be the top one, January 1st, 2022, right? Okay, so this looks like something that's going to get published. If you saw this and this was the post that you wanted to publish, you'd be like, great, good. It's a markdown file. It doesn't need to be knitted. But if you had server site running anyway, which you should no matter what, then you're good to go. It looks like it's adding DS store to here. And this is totally irrelevant, but I have like a real pet peeve with those DS stores getting in here. So DS. And actually what I should have done, you can do check get ignore, and it would have told me to do that. You can safely add to get ignore that file. It's for the DS stores for Mac users, and then the thumbs DB is for Windows users. So anyway, now that I've done that, let's refresh this and then it should. Okay. All right, great. So I'm going to add this post. Okay. And remember, I'm in a branch called new post. I am going to update the get ignore. Update get ignore. And then I'm going to add that new post. I'm going to leave that Hugo build lock thing because I'm still not quite sure exactly what that is. And I kind of want to keep it there so that I can flesh this out after the video. But add New Year's post. Okay, that's my commit message. I'm going to push it. And so if you go over to back to our repository, you can see that GitHub kind of detects that I've created a new branch and that I've had a recent push less than a minute ago. Okay, so if you go to that branch, now you'll see that it's 2 commits ahead of main, right? I made 2 changes. I edited the get ignore and I added my new post. So if you go over here to 4 commits, you'll see here was my initial commit. Here was my example site initial commit. So this was the one I made from the GitHub UI. This is the first one I made from our studio. And then these 2 I just made. Okay, so now in and of itself, this is not going to create anything on the Netlify side because I do not have deploy previews activated, or because I don't have branch deploys activated. I do have deploy previews though. So what I can do is if I go back to this new post thing, had recent pushes, compare and pull request, that's what we want to do. So you want to do the base to main. So I want to be able to merge it into main. I want to merge it into my production branch. I'm going to add a post about New Year's 2022. So it automatically does a title for your pull request, pulling from your branch name, I think. All right, so the first thing you can do is you can create a pull request, but you can also create a draft pull request. I'm a huge, huge fan of draft pull requests, whether it's for yourself or for other people. It's a nice signal to yourself that there's work to be done. So I'm going to go ahead and create the draft pull request. So this is just a draft. This means that usually some people who are very good at getting GitHub can still merge in a draft pull request, but usually you have to mark it as ready for review. So it's a really nice thing for yourself, for housekeeping, if you want to just kind of like remember that you worked on this branch and that you're considering, merging this in, but there's more work to be done. You can use pull requests in this way to kind of, denote work in progress, essentially. I should have added a description, which I normally would for working with myself even, but I didn't. You can see the 2 commits that are associated with it, and you can see that my Netlify bot is working already, okay? So even though I did a draft pull request, it's still doing some interesting things for me. So it's creating my deploy preview. It's got a link to the deploy log, and then it gives me this little link, browse the preview, right? So I get a link called deploy-preview-1, and that allows me to click on it and look at this. If I go over to blog, I will see that my post is there, right? Right. Perfect. Okay, so Happy New Year 2022. Now this is not currently published, right? If I go to this, my normal URL, it is not there, okay? So what I can do now is I can mark it as ready for review if I wanted to. Let's do that. Now it's already detected it's already done the deploy preview. So I'm fine with, it's not gonna like regenerate. Let's go back over to the Netlify build logs so you can see what happened. So see, you can see it here. There gives you this deploy preview number 1, and it tells you that it's branch new post, and you can see a process just like anything else that we've done in Netlify. 4 unique page views. Oh, that was me moving around. Okay. So that's just a really, really nice feature. I love having this. It's automatically there. Remember, I didn't have to activate anything for being able to work like this, but I did have to have either a draft or just a normal normal pull request, either one of those. And then this is a really nice way for you to interact with yourself. Like you can say like to do, and then do like a list, like need to fix like build lock file, just make up some stuff, add original narrative, maybe check social sharing. So you can comment to yourself, you can do a little tasks list to yourself. It's a really great housekeeping tool just for yourself, just on your own. So I'm going to go ahead and merge in this pull request. Okay, so it has no conflicts with the base branch. I'm going to merge it in. Uh-oh. Why it's still detecting my RStudio email address. Okay, and then it's really nice at this point. Usually you shouldn't need to keep that branch around, so I usually delete the branch. And then this branch is gone, so I'm going to switch to main. Okay, so now the tricky thing is that we're going to watch it go to Netlify. Let's see, it should have, production. So it detected that there was a change in main because I merged in that pull request. And it looks like it's already been built. Let's check out the deploy. Right. So it's showing up as it finished. Okay. So this is very confusing for new users. All right. So let's go back. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to do a fresh pull. It wants me to be more specific, like it tells you that pulling without specifying how to reconcile divergent branches is it's frowned upon. But let's see. Okay, if I go over to content and blog, I have Happy New Year in there. It's there. The problem is the date, y'all. Okay, so oops. Don't need that. Publish date is what you want to use. So it's okay to have a date that is in the future. You might do this for talks. It's probably unlikely that you're going to do it for a blog post, but I'm just using it as an example. So I'm going to do, let's see, 28 is today. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to create a new branch. fixed date on New Year post. Okay, so if I create that branch, it doesn't matter if I've already saved my changes to it because I haven't committed. So I saved, I changed the index.md. This should all still work. I'm going to serve the site. Let's go over to blog. It should be there. So Happy New Year is there, right? So let's go ahead and commit. Add publish date YAML key. Okay. Now I'm going to push. Now it's still going to show up in my deploy preview. The deploy preview does do future dated stuff. Okay. It's one thing to know. So let's go back. Now it's detected my new branch, fixed date on New Year's post. I'm going to let it kind of auto do that. I'm going to just create a plain pull request now, but I could also create a draft. It doesn't matter. Now the deploy preview is still going to look same. I believe it should get added. Yeah, here you can see the little Netlify bots working. Inspect the deploy log. I'll do it manually over here. You can see I've got deploy preview number 2 and it's building. So this will look the exact same, unfortunately. You can actually tell it to not deploy future dated posts in the netlify.toml file. So I recognize that this is a kind of confusing state to get yourself into, but that's why I wanted to show it. Okay. So here, browse the preview. Let's check out that preview real quick. It's going to look the same. It'll be there. Yep. Okay. So let's go back. Now I'm going to merge this in. Okay. Again, delete the branch. I'm not interested in it anymore because I fixed it. I'm going to go back to main. I'm going to close that and I'm going to do pull. Okay. Now, let's see there. So now Netlify has built our post. Okay, so that was an example of using the deploy preview to be able to see the content. Unfortunately, this future date trick will still hit you if you use those deploy previews. It'll show up. You have to tell Netlify specifically not to publish future dated stuff. But this is really nice for yourself if you want to have a blog post that you're planning to publish, say on New Year's Day, and you want to be able to see it and share it with other people, or even just be able to access it easily from a different device. Maybe you want to read through it on your iPad late at night before you publish it to make sure you feel good about it. You can do this and you can use the deploy preview. So some people actually like that the deploy previews show you the future dated stuff. But what we showed you was how to go through, use pull requests to be able to generate deploy previews, and those stick around. So the nice thing about Netlify is that this little deploy preview will always be there. So you have it, you can always go see like, oh, what was that change that I made when I did that one pull request? It'll always be there for you. So that's a really nice feature of Netlify and GitHub when you use branches and pull requests. So that's the way of using an actual pull request. You can do a draft pull request or you can do a normal pull request. Either one of those will automatically with Netlify give you that ability to see that deploy preview, and it shows up automatically here in your actual GitHub once you've configured it that way. So when you've linked up your GitHub and your Netlify, you get to see this nice little Netlify bot. It's very pleasant to interact with, and you can see your deploy preview right away. You can see the deploy log, and it links to the source changes for you. So I think that's like a total game changer for being able to practice working on Git and GitHub on your own with a blog down site, is to use this new post, new branch pattern. And Garrick Aiden Buey has a really great blog post on this too. Let's see, blog down workflow. Blog down new post workflow. So that's generally what I really recommend people to do when you're using blog down. So I believe he goes through and tells you how to preview and test the draft post using Netlify's deploy preview feature. So all of the things that I just showed you, and then see he uses this build future. Actually, that's what I've done. In my Netlify toml, I believe the instructions are to build future. I believe they are. Deploy prime URL. I don't actually have the build future flag, so that's interesting. Maybe I should add that. Side note, drafts. So this is a good point because a lot of people use drafts for this purpose. So if you mark something as draft in Hugo, you would go into blog. Let's see. Let's go back to Happy New Year. You get the exact same effect. So you can see it locally, but it won't publish when you go to Netlify or when you actually go to your production deploy. I generally don't recommend the draft flag. I would rather deal with dates personally. So I typically use date and publish date for this reason. So date is the date that's going to show up in the actual post here. So it says December 28th. Oh, let's see, that's the published date. So the published date is overriding the date. And then the date is just sort of like useless at that point. So I don't really mind that too much. I don't. And I think the draft flag is just kind of confusing personally. So I would do false, and then you can just kind of remove the date altogether and use published date instead. And I believe I have a blog post on this. Let's see, it was called like how to troubleshoot your blog down. Troubleshooting your build. So I have this Back to the Future section where you can kind of play content with a future published date value, content with draft status, and then content with a expiry date. So all of these are things that you can add to your blog down site. Oops. VPN problems. Okay, so that was one workflow. All right. I think actually I want to get rid of this. I'm just going to discard that real quick. Okay, I'm going to just discard. Well, yeah, we'll leave it. Okay, so the next thing I want to show is branch deploys. Okay, so I'm going to, let's say I want to do like a whole theme overhaul. I'm going to create a new branch, theme overhaul. So this is what you would do if you needed to update your theme or if you were switching from academic to apparel, for example, any of those things. So let's say I want to maybe I'll make changes to this. I'll just remove this layout file. Actually, that'll get added when I rebuild the site. So that was a silly thing to change. Let's go to config and I'll change the color. Config toml, let's change the theme and the font here. So we'll go from theme sky, which is the default, over to, let's see, I think peach is one of my favorites that Desiree designed. And then let's do the text font is Atkinson hyper legible. And then let's switch to bitter. This has to be, there we go. Okay, so let's see, do I have serve site running? No. I'm going to serve site. There we go. Okay, so now I'm changing the actual way my site looks. I've got my new post in there, but I'm changing the theme up a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit all of that. And I'm still going to ignore that build lock file. Oh, it looks like it didn't regenerate that shortcode. I'm going to leave it then. Okay, and actually this brings me to a good point. You can actually, if you're using Netlify, you can actually remove that resources file because it's actually regenerating when it rebuilds. So I'm going to delete that and then I'm going to add it to my git ignore. And I think blogdown would have told me to do that. Let's see if I did blogdown, check git ignore. You could safely ignore DS store. Oh, it looks like it wants me to format it like that. I don't know that it needs to be formatted like that, but we'll do it to make it happy. We can add public too. Why not? It's not actually generating it now, but okay. All right. So let's ignore resources. Let Netlify take the wheel. Okay. And post ref. I don't think that should cause problems. We'll see. Hope not. All right, and then change theme. Okay, so I'm now going to talk to you a little bit about branch deploys. The thing with Netlify and branch deploys that you have to be careful of is that if you're doing this workflow a lot and you're creating a lot of different branches and you're constantly pushing to the branches, if you start building on every push to every branch, you can rack up the Netlify build minutes pretty fast. And I have gotten to the point where I have had to pay Netlify, which I have only done that 1 month. And it was when I was developing the Hugo Apparel theme. Just a caution, once you start getting into the branch deploy world, be a little bit more careful about how which branches you're deploying. And so what I want to show you right now is how to deploy a targeted branch. So you can see I just made that branch, I pushed to it, and nothing has changed on my Netlify deploys. Nothing has deployed. If we go over to site settings and build and deploy, you can see that if I did a pull request, I would get that deploy preview built, which is great. But I don't have any other branches deployed. So I'm going to change that right now. So we're going to go to branches and click edit. And I'm going to do, let me add individual branches. So I believe I called mine theme overhaul. Oops. Add branch theme overhaul, and you can list multiples. And I really encourage you to do this. So if you ever are working on, kind of maybe a longer blog post or something, and you don't want to do a draft pull request to yourself or a pull request to yourself, maybe you're trying to be a little bit more undercover about your work, you can do this. So it's a way of not necessarily sending up the PR flag and getting that deploy preview, but you'll get a branch deploy preview. So if you have access to your Netlify site, you'll see it. The nice thing about the PR pattern is that you get to see the printouts directly in the PR, and it gives you that deploy preview link and all of the info from the Netlify bot. That's a really nice feature for me. But I do this a lot if I'm working on one branch and I'm doing like just a ton of work on it. So I'm going to save that. So now it will have my production branch still as main. I haven't changed that. So what you see when you go to the root URL is not going to change at all, right? So we go here, it's still the blue theme, but I do have this branch deploy theme overhaul. So now I'm going to go over to deploys, and I believe it doesn't automatically deploy this. So I think I have to deploy the site like this. And I think maybe that'll work, or I might have to push. No, it's only going to deploy the main. Okay, so it's not detecting my new branch. So I will need to make one little change to this new branch to be able to make, to trigger that. So let's make a change. Let's do nav all caps to false. And then that way it'll trigger that a deploy preview for this branch. All right. Small change to trigger deploy. All right. Now, it might make me wait. We'll see. There we go. Now you can see a branch deploy, theme overhaul building. Okay. So I couldn't do it manually in the UI for Netlify, but it's building. This is also incidentally the way to, you can also do a pull request change for this, but working in these branches is also the way that I would recommend you up your Hugo version. So I typically would not just push that straight to main. I would do a branch, say update Hugo to blah, blah, blah. Make sure I do a pull request or a branch deploy, and make sure I can see it. And I see this deploy build log and it looks healthy and it checks out. All right, cool. So as you can see, nothing has changed over here in my GitHub, for example. So I have theme overhaul is a branch, but I don't have any way of accessing that branch deploy from the GitHub UI. I have to go into Netlify. So again, this is a way to be like kind of undercover, making changes and seeing the deploys as you work. But I do have a branch deploy, and the branch deploy URL is the name of the branch and then -- what the root URL is that you're deploying in Netlify. So this is Eager Ardinghelli. This is Eager Ardinghelli, but it's theme overhaul, right? And so you can see that the theme is totally different. You can see that I can click around. It's a fully interactive website. Everything works just the same as my normal site, but this allows me to do any changes that I want, and I can see them populate there. So let's change it from, let's say peach to, let's do forest. I like that one too. Change color theme. So again, now that I've activated this branch deploy, Netlify is going to build every time I push to that branch. So you may want to do like kind of rack up some commits locally and then push every once in a while, only when you really need to see the preview. So what I'm showing you now is kind of like a showing you the demo, but don't necessarily do it like this, like make little changes and then push and then look, because you're going to rack up those Netlify build minutes faster than you think, especially if you're also making changes at the same time to your production branch, because these are all like kind of building on top of each other. But you can see that it's going, it's building. What I've done is I've changed this to a green theme. So when this is done, we should see that if I refresh, it's green. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so once you've kind of been working on a branch for a while, maybe now you're ready to actually go like kind of prime time and do a pull request. So you'd come back over to your GitHub, do compare and pull request to main, and then we'd say, okay, I'm ready for my theme overhaul. And again, you can do a draft if you want, or you can do a plain old pull request. I'm going to do a plain old pull request. You can see that I've done some small commits here. My Netlify bot is kicking in, and it's also going to generate a deploy preview for the exact same thing that you just did the branch deploy for. So this theme overhaul branch is going to look the exact same as the deploy preview once it generates. So I'm going to go into Netlify to show you what it's doing. So it's doing a deploy preview. I think it should be, it is done. Okay, so you can see here, there's branch deploy, theme overhaul, and then deploy preview number 3. Okay, there's the, so this has a different link, deploy-preview-3, but it's the exact same as this other one that we were doing that was based on the branch. So it's just different ways of doing the same thing, but it's really nice to have that flexibility with Netlify. I really, really like those 2 features. And I think they're really helpful, especially knowing that it gets activated when you do a draft PR. I really like to do this for myself, just to be able to get a small test and make sure that it's building and working on Netlify and that it looks as I expect before I merge it in. And so I do this a lot for work in progress stuff, create a draft pull request, get my deploy preview. And I really only use branch deploys when I'm doing kind of more serious long-term work. And I typically do recommend that you select the branches individually, but you can select all. So you can go into branch deploys and say, deploy all branches that I push to my repository, okay? Now this is a little bit more of a dangerous one too in terms of build minutes. So be careful with that. Those can also rack up, because that means that every branch that you have and everything that you commit and push to any of those branches is going to get a deploy, get its own deploy. Now, the nice thing is those deploys stick around. So you can always come back and you can be able to see exactly what was going on in that branch when you deployed it. You can see every deployed preview for every pull request. It's just a really great housekeeping tool, and it makes it so much easier for you to keep track of, you know, if you're really trying not to break things, it makes it much simpler for you to be able to say, oh, something I did in this change in this branch has broken something, or something doesn't look right, and you can troubleshoot a lot easier. Once you actually merge it into the main branch, it's a lot harder to disentangle which was the commit that changed the website in a way that you didn't want it to be changed. One last thing, I haven't used this a ton, but there is this like Netlify drawer, which I think is really nice. You can play around with those features. They just added that a while ago, and I haven't completely explored it yet, but you have a lot of different things that you can do and explore in the Netlify drawer. So it is nice to be able to click here, and I like being able to see the GitHub, because a lot of times I was going back and forth between GitHub and a deploy preview. I think it does allow you to be able to do like kind of more targeted comments about specific areas of the website too. So if you were, you know, kind of working with somebody else, that's critical for that. But again, I find for myself that really it's a nice way to get used to Git and GitHub is to be able to create a branch, always do a pull request, maybe even draft pull requests before you do anything that changes the main branch at all. And then the nice thing is if you've already got it wired up with Netlify, you get those deploy previews. And if you're doing more heavy duty lifting, use the branch deploys, but use them strategically and very carefully so that you don't build up those build minutes. All right, so one last step, we're going to merge in this pull request, make it green, and I'm going to go over to Dusty Domains. And let's make sure it built, deploys. Oh, I'm already there. Let's see. There we go. So my production is building. My website is Eager Arting Ellie. Maybe I'll change that real quick. I'm gonna have to change out all these different links. I'm gonna make it custom. Let's go up before I submit it. We'll call it Eager Apparel. Let's see if that works. Ooh, okay. All right, so I'm going to submit this to Dusty Domains as my last step. You can see that some of the charities that Netlify is donating to include Code 2040, Resilient Coders, STEM Tank, and Black Girls Code. I think it's some really great organizations. Okay. 2021, I'm going to stop sharing real quick. Coming back. Okay. All right. Share my screen. All right, so I just bought a domain and shipped the project in the same dang year. Please check out my site that contributed $500 to charity. So I hope this gives you some confidence in working with Git and GitHub and blogdown and Netlify. And I genuinely believe that you are your own best collaborator and you are your own best teacher for using version control. So if you have the inclination to build websites, maybe building your own portfolio website or a project website, I really think it's a great way to kind of dip your toe in, start working with branches and Git and GitHub, and then use these these extra features in Netlify to kind of level up your workflow and give you a lot more confidence and help you troubleshoot your site more easily and kind of have a little bit more of a sanity check workflow for being able to add new content and new changes to your site. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.